Welcome to the second episode of our second season of the Safety Foundation's webinar series. My name is Mark Hussein, and I'm the CEO here at the Alberta Construction Safety Association. Before we start, please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on ACSA's YouTube channel by next Monday. This webinar continues the important discussions from the ACSA's 2024 Conference Partners Panel, focusing on safety and business excellence in Alberta's construction industry. At the conference, we received a great many questions to our panel of industry experts and partners, and we couldn't get to all of them. So today, we will be revisiting those questions and open the conversation to other questions you, our webinar attendees, might have for our two panelists. So we're using the Slido to manage questions. This is where you submit new questions and also vote on the ones that you're most interested in. Go to slido.com and enter the code Safety Excellence 2 as one word, Safety Excellence and the number 2 as one word. Once you join Slido, you'll see a few short questions. Please answer these as we get started. So, I'd like to introduce our two panelists. Today, we're joined by Adil Kodian, Executive Vice President at Rohit Homes, and Stefan Rutkowski, President and CEO of Careers the Next Generation. Together, we'll explore the challenges and opportunities related to attracting, training, and supporting Alberta's construction workforce. Adil oversees the home building division at Rohit Group across Canada, managing its financial health and heading its technological progress. With a keen eye for innovation, Adil also leads Rohit's human resources and information technology departments and drives industry-leading initiatives to propel Rohit forward, such as his leadership with BuildBase, a construction management software solution built specifically for home builders. Adil's career, spanning academia to industry, has equipped him with a unique mix of business savvy and technical expertise. He excels in navigating complex challenges with strategic finesse to keep Rohit at the forefront of the real estate sector. As a board member of several organizations, Adil is focused on solving the affordable housing crisis in Canada. And Stefan is the president and CEO of Careers the Next Generation and has strong ties to energy, infrastructure, and manufacturing. Stefan emphasizes championing SafeGen's safety awareness training for high school students that enabled over 12,000 students to complete SafeGen courses in the last school year. Before joining Careers, Stefan was a global director with Worley, working in several countries, and started his career as an environmental consultant. Stefan has served on various provincial boards related to trades and education. He holds master's degrees in environmental geography and responsibility and business practice. Welcome to you both. Thank you for joining us today. A very international flavor for our webinar today. So Adil, let's start with you. Can you please tell us a little bit about your role at Rohit and the company's perspective on safety in the residential construction sector?
Thank you for the kind introduction, Mark. At Rohit Homes, our vision continues to be rooted in building communities where people love to live. As we look ahead this year, our focus remains on delivering approximately 1,500 homes across Canada, just maintaining the strong pace we have established while we ensure that we grow responsibly as a national builder. A key priority for us relevant to this webinar is ensuring that safety is not just a checklist item, but a deeply embedded value in everything we do. As we expand into new markets, new cities, new municipalities, and we diversify our product offerings to more and more complex multifamily housing, we're working hard at making safety a core operational competence across the board. This means investing in training, refining procedures, and holding accountable to the highest standards, both on site and even in the office. And this is often challenging, as when we scale across Canada, we find differing attitudes towards safety in various markets and submarkets. Ultimately, supporting safety in the home building industry for us isn't just about protecting our teams. It's about just delivering better homes, creating trust with our customers, and leading by example. As a simple illustration of the point that many of our trade partners see this. When I walk up and I see Tim Hortons cups strewed across the floor and the bathtub full of garbage, I don't need a complex software system to tell me that the house is going to have problems. It's going to show up on Facebook with my customers yelling at me. It's the proverbial graffiti problem. Safety is the leading indicator. And if you don't nip the issue in the bud, it escalates and it shows up in real scenarios here, not just related to safety.
Well, thank you, Otto. And one other thing, I love that Tim Hortons Cup leading indicator. I've used that story a few times after you told it to me. The other thing that I want to acknowledge is your commitment to safety in the office. And so often, if that's not integrated into the office work, all the problems manifest themselves on the job site. So I really want to acknowledge that portion of your concentration on safety. So thank you. Now, Stefan, let's talk to you. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and career's role and perspective on preparing young workers for a career in construction.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and very pleased to be here for sure. And thanks for including us in the conversation. It surely is an important one. Yeah, so just to give a bit of an idea about careers, we are a nonprofit organization. We've been around 28 years. We work province-wide. We have a team all the way from McMurray all the way down to Lethbridge and anywhere in between. We work with industry and high schools across the province to prepare youth for their post-high school career, particularly in in-demand occupation, and that certainly includes the trades. So we work very closely as well with our government partners, namely apprenticeship industry training, to help with their registered apprenticeship program to bring more youth into the trades, help them build a bit of an appreciation of what that means to work in the trades, and then connect them to employers. So our magic really is in that facilitating the connection. We don't only work in the trades, we also work with industries such as agriculture. We added aviation recently because there's a growing need in the aviation space as well. We're working with forestry, health to some degree. So it's a whole bunch of different opportunities for youth to explore. And you mentioned SafeGen in your introduction briefly. One thing that we added a few years back is a platform called SafeGen that provides foundational safety training to youth across the province before they go into a school-based program. And that really helps them to take that first step into that safety space and prepare them for what they're going to experience in the workplace. So when they get to an employer, they have a little bit of a initial appreciation of how important safety is.
Thanks, Stefan. Like one of the joys of my year was participating in your safety video contest that you had with students. It was excellent to see what they came up with. And, I think an important part of safety is just having the competency to know what's going on when you arrive on the work site. So that's one of the things that I love about careers and your mission and how you execute. So thank you again for joining us. So let's jump right into the questions here. We have a lot left over, and I'm going to start with you, Adil. This is a question that came specifically about Rohit's caught working safe program. The question really is, what tangible improvements have you seen with your caught working safe program? And just if you could give an overview of the program, just for those of us, those who are joining us that weren't at the conference to be familiar with what the program is, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so thank you, Mark, for that. Got Working Safe is a Rohit program. It's a marketed and branded safety program that we actually run. I'll come back to why some of that is important. Let me explain maybe a little bit of the context behind the program. For us, as I said earlier, safety is more than a protocol. We wanted it to be a core value that sort of shapes our culture and organizations. When I first started in this industry, what I found was traditional safety programs almost focused on two equally boring things. One was penalizing unsafe behavior. It was an entirely punishment-based system. And secondly, we focused on training people in filling up arcane forms and checking here and do this in triplicate and file paperwork. We couldn't figure out how to get people interested in either a penalty program, no surprise there, or convince somebody that's standing in -40 outside looking at a site saying, maybe you should sit in a truck and fill out more paper. So it was not working. So we flipped our modeling behavior a little bit. We wanted to have a positive and proactive approach. That's what led to the creation of our Cart Working Safe program. The purpose of the program was to shift the focus from merely avoiding accidents and filling up paperwork to actively recognize and rewarding safe work practices. It's a play on words. We didn't want to catch people doing unsafe things. We just wanted to catch them doing safe things. So we wanted to we wanted to create an environment where safety is celebrated and ingrained as much as we can. I mean, it's not, you can't do Kumbaya songs every day about safety and do safety minutes. You can, but the best example is to put our money where our mouth is. We catch people doing safe things. We enter them into a draw, and every quarter we give away $2,000 at our safety week, at our our trade meetings and so on. It's just part and parcel of what we do now. So why did we do it? We wanted to make sure that people aren't doing safe work procedures and safety because the safety advisor or the ACSA or the OHS inspectors will come yell at us and we need the core certificate to see a few dollars and no, those are all not reasons for which people will go above and beyond the call of duty to do the work. That's sort of the idea of the Cart Working Safe program. We've observed tangible outcomes. One other piece we did was, along with launching the marketing of this program, we put together an editable safety manual on our website, and this is a few years ago. This is at the time when a lot of changes were happening to the Safety Act to HNS, and it was very expensive for our smaller trade partners to go get somebody to draft and update their safety manuals. So we just said, look, here's our safety manual. We're going to take off all the Rohit logos from it. And please feel free to use as you see fit all the safe work procedures, policies. Every one of these documents is compliant with the current version of the legislation. Feel free to use it. So just from a point of view of helping, if you don't have your own safety team, if your 3-person company can't afford it, we still need you to have a a compliant program within you so you can use the program. We've seen tangible outcomes. It's improved safety reporting, slightly better compliance with PPE, slightly better, but we're not doing it necessarily for the numeric incidents. It's a happy conversation when every quarter we have to think through how many stickers for Cart Working Safe did we hand out? Who are we picking for this award? And ordering the big check and standing in front, putting on social media. It just makes the conversation continue, and it's a positive reinforcement sort of conversation there.
No, thanks for that. One of the things that I really love about that program and what you've done is the acknowledgement of your subtraits. And that, safety so often is looked at, this is my responsibility as an employer, and it ignores the layers of different workers, different employers, and how projects actually get done. So I really appreciate that you've gone above and beyond, and it seems like the program has really engaged workers with the incentives that you've provided. So I'm going to turn it over to Stefan here and ask. It leads to this example leads to a broader discussion about how we engage employees in safety. And so, Stefan, I'll start with you. How can leadership engage employees? And you have the advantage of working with very young employees who may have the stereotype of not being engaged. I think that's a stereotype and not necessarily the actual fact. But what advice would you have for an employer on engaging young workers for sustained safety and performance and just engagement in what you're doing writ large?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. It's such a critical question and a very good one, obviously. And you're right, it is a bit of a stereotype because while youth has certainly changed, they're still highly engaged, very eager to learn for sure. So I guess there's a couple of very critical parts to this, and I'm going to start with one that seems very apparent, but sometimes doesn't happen as easily. And this is about mentorship. When youth show up at a work site or when youth show up with a new employer, what they're really going to be looking for is someone going to care about me? Is someone going to really be looking after kind of where I want to go with this? And is someone really understanding where I am in my development? They may not know that this is the questions that they have, but these are the questions that they have. So one of the things when I talk about mentorship as an employer, when it comes particularly to safety, is to understand these guys or gals are not fully fledged employees yet. They don't have that understanding how a work site works, what the potential risks are, how teamwork, all of that stuff they don't understand. So an employer taking a very active approach and saying, I'm going to show you that, and that comes back to what Adil talked about. Safety in particular is integral to everything we do. This is not something you do in the morning through a safety briefing or in the evening by writing up a report. This is something every little piece of work you do contains a certain safety consideration. So when they mentor them through this and make them understand that this is not an active behavior that you do afterwards, but a learned behavior that you just instill and gonna do as part of your job, this is the critical part. The other one is commitment to this youth, because a lot of employers, obviously, when they bring these youth in, won't necessarily know where they're at, but it sounds a bit preachy, but they need to stick with it because these youth will turn around for sure. And even though they may not seem like this at first, we have seen tremendous results. I mean, last year we placed 4,500 youth across the province. And out of those, many of those were returning placements to the same employer from the previous years who wanted these youth back because they saw how they performed, they saw how they developed, and they see the potential to continually support them. So that commitment piece, partnered up with that mentorship piece and understanding where these youth are at in their career development, in their personal development, is critical for employers to appreciate compared to the rest of their team.
Thank you. And Otto, I just want to turn to you to build on what Stefan has said here. From a leadership perspective, how can employers effectively engage with workers, from the front line, right on the tools to senior teams, from craft workers all the way up to the office, to ensure that safety performance is not only met, but really sustained over time?
So what I find is the role for the leader, the role for leadership in the business is it starts with culture. One, like you have to model it with leadership and reinforce this every day on the ground in everything that you do. We have to focus on bridging the experience gap through mentorship and peer learning and all of those other things that Stefan just talked about. But it's also important to really think through in depth what your incentive program is, both financial and non-financial. What do you reward? What do you recognize? And what do you actually pay for? So one key lesson is to align the incentive with medium to long-term lasting behavioral and cultural change. And rewards are effective motivators if designed properly, but real transformation occurs when safety becomes the intrinsic part of daily operation here. But this is and leadership plays a crucial role here by consistently modeling safe behaviors and consistently giving out rewards for the exact same behavior. If you're on a, if you're taking a flight, the number of people that buckled immediately, we should keep rewarding for the exact same behavior so that it becomes second nature. I mean, these leadership or these incentive schemes can be quite tricky though. On one hand, you do want to reward the individual. But let's say you make a $250 cash bonus for your own staff member or your internal employees if they exhibit a safe quarter. You pick a score and stuff like that. One of the moral hazards with this sort of compensation model is some people say, it's easier to give up on the $250 because that's all it matters than work hard to implement all the safety procedures. So this is what I mean by, leadership has to sit down and think through all the impacts and moral hazards created by incentive schemes. So for us, we create a financial disincentive for our internal teams if we see failures, And at the same time, we create a financial incentive for our trade partners to be safe on site. So it's sort of like a push-pull system. We never offer our own teams any cash incentive for success in that metric, other than, of course, other bonuses and what they would get otherwise. But I would say leadership should consider culture change, and you do it through focusing on positive reinforcement for certain groups, having negative reinforcement necessarily for certain groups in terms of how you figure the oversight of the function.
You know, the theme, I think, to both of your responses here is it's a long game. It's a long game to invest in your employees and set that culture, but the dividends are immeasurable in the end. Bringing a young worker in, demonstrating that you care, having a culture of safety keeps a skilled worker that you've developed for a long time in your organization. And I think that's pretty powerful. So I'd like the next question is really focused uh, on on projects. So I'm going to ask you, Adil, like safety is of highest importance on a site until the project is behind schedule. That's what came in from the conference. So what conversations can be had to create realistic schedules that allow for safety activities that may take time or impact schedule potentially?
And I think this is where the tension lies in our industry. The tension's real. Safety can feel like it's in conflict with schedules and costs, and depending on what you end up doing there, especially in residential construction, where some of our trades are large corporate entities with, and often they compete in the same space, large corporate entities with safety teams and procedures and manuals, and some are three-person companies where the vice president, president, and the CFO are all on the tools doing the work themselves. So it's, again, they don't have the infrastructure some of the large firms have. And the other part, especially for residential construction across different markets, is complete inconsistent safety enforcement across the industry. What that means is builder A enforces a hard hat to be worn inside a structure, but once you finish it, don't worry about it. You can actually walk around. Well, no, that's not how the construction safety rules should be done. But that's their way of doing it. Builder B might say, you know what, the moment you step on my property, you got to wear a safety hard hat. And that's the minimum set of PPE rules that I enforce. This sometimes create pressure for either the construction, the builder, or the trade to prioritize speed over safety. And unfortunately, I wish I could say there was a perfect solution. There isn't one. It's not an exact science. Incremental continuous improvement. Work with project teams to build in realistic timelines, figure out a measuring metric for trade partners when we select them through procurement processes to create a weighted solution with quality of work, but also quality of safety adherence to site. Identify what your red lines are. For trade partners who are good trade partners but are falling short on the safety side, we help them with developing their own programs if that's what they need. We we send out safety officers and advisors to roll out programs like Cart Working Safe so that you can create a sense of shared responsibility. It's a little more playful and gamified. And I think it just gets slightly better over time, and that's about as good as it gets for the moment.
Yeah, and I like that approach, and I would reiterate any challenge to a project manifests itself on site. So if you have your scheduling delays, supply chain problems, attracting the right workers, any of those kinds of things manifest themselves on site only. And so I'm totally happy to hear the things that you're doing on incremental improvements because we'll get there when it's accounted for right at the beginning of the project. So, Stefan, you and I have had a number of conversations about what's happening in the workforce here in Alberta. And, one of the things that's occurring or that will maybe need to occur is talking about non-traditional workers coming into the industry or workers with different abilities, different attributes. And so we got a question about a specific type of worker. So as we continue to understand neurodivergence, like ADHD or folks on the autism spectrum, or even, what's really real in our society and not just in our industry, mental health conditions. What do you think employers can do to support young workers that may have these invisible disabilities or these invisible attributes, but could still contribute effectively to the workforce?
Yeah, another good question and challenging for sure, but an opportunity as well. I think something I learned from my son, I'm at an age now where I'm actually learning from my kids, which is always good. He's working as a teacher with Edmond Public School. He works in the interactions program. So this is he works in the elementary school aged bracket, and he works with kids on the autism spectrum. And when I asked him how difficult this must be, he said, well, no, not necessarily. He chose to do this. He said, because they don't choose to be autistic. They don't choose to behave the way they do. This is their personality. And I just have to accept this as a teacher and work with them to make it as good as possible for them. And so then flipping over to employers, this may be a little bit harder in the workplace, but this in essence is the same situation. There needs to be opportunities to appreciate the individual that may be on the spectrum or has challenges through ADHD, doesn't choose to have these challenges. They work with them and that's their personality. One key piece in this, and this is probably one of the most important one, is that communication is that key factor. Communication exchanges are very, very different and this is a very generalized statement, obviously, but with some neurodiverse youth. They don't take on information as easily or different than other folks. So there's very little, there should be very little ambiguity, like the normal sentence saying, well, just go over and do this might need some further granularity in what exactly is expected of them, because if they continually fail in meeting this expectation because of that misunderstanding, it creates a downward spiral that is obviously challenging. Another one actually is about flexible accommodations. How can we help these youth and when I talk about the spectrum right now, autism, how can I help them not getting into a situation where they are being challenged too much? And often it's sensory triggers. So that's not possible in all work sites. Again, very generalized kind of comment now, but if your work allows you to wear noise canceling headphones, that seems so simple. But for someone on the spectrum who is triggered by certain noises or loud noise, this might be something that completely takes them out of that potential situation. And then for the broad organization, there needs to be just a culture of understanding or support. The snickering in the back if someone reacts differently than others, or any of this is completely counterproductive, obviously. And then there's awareness. So there's awareness trading piece to this. If we know that we have folks that work for us in this kind of, with these kind of challenges, then let's make sure we all know and it's understood and is being supported. Now, mental health is a bit different. It's not necessarily always the same, but there is more and more youth, and I'm sure the employers here on that call can see and appreciate there's more and more youth that are coming through right now that have mental health challenges coming into the workforce. A recent study actually by the Mental Health Research Canada, I just read up on this, stated that 28% of 15 to 24-year-olds need some level of mental health support. It comes back again to that listening and eliminating bias. How can we make sure that someone who does have a mental health issue doesn't feel that they are different and that they're not being supported? A lot of youth will switch employers if they don't feel that there's adequate mental health support, and will look for an employer that does provide the support. And this awareness piece is the same. Let's make sure that people feel comfortable to share their challenge with their supervisor. This doesn't have to be an open thing, and the supervisor can adequately address it and provide access to mental health support.
Thank you. Thank you. Adil, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Now, my comment is not related to necessarily site work, although that is relevant in our context. I look at neurodiversity and neurodivergence as a huge advantage to businesses like ours. So construction, and we hear this all over the place. Construction is going through rapid disruption with technologies like AI, prefab construction, automation, and so on. And I'm going to quote Elon Musk. We need people who are going to change the world. Do you think they're going to be just chill, normal people that do the same incremental thing? And part of the advantage in not being that is people who can think non-linearly, who come with experience saying it's not a rational thought to say wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm tired of building a house but through with human hands. I'm going to train a machine to think about taking orders from a computer, from a website online, from an app. I'm going to deliver the house as a fully 3D printed module. The technology isn't here yet. It's going to require suspending disbelief. It actually requires people with skills and the ability to think in ways that other people cannot. And that's, I think, a huge value for organizations like ours, where we want to be ahead of the disruption, not be replaced by it. So we encourage neurodivergence. We want people who have that problem-solving mindset. And right now, I'm speaking from India. The perfect Indian term for that is a word called jugaad. It is just creative. It means creative, flexible, resourceful thinking, jerry-rigging things to just make it work. And hey, if you can find that out, there's a lot of money to be made in being that disruptor.
I loved what you said about this because it doesn't neurodivergence, like you say, for both of you, doesn't have to be an inhibiting factor. It can be value add, the way that you see the world, and if you create that culture of care that Stefan was talking about, I think you can get some really good returns on that. So, our next question is about a critical aspect of worker engagement, and that is around mentorship. So, uh, Adil, could you talk to us about, like what we need, like how do you entice proper mentors? Many tradespeople are concerned about the consequences of mentoring. There are those who don't want to take on the responsibility or potentially the liability of being a supervisor. What's Rohit's approach to onboarding and ongoing mentorship programs?
So I don't know if we have a strong mentorship program that has, paired experienced people. If you look at our organization, we are not dissimilar from a lot of businesses where we simply don't have enough experienced people available to train all the new people that we need as we grow through our business. Our big difference compared to our competitors is we don't focus on creating an L&D budget and write a checkbox that says we must spend $1,850 per employee to hit our training budgets. What we do is we sort of do a little bit of a loose L&D budget, which is we seek out people who are, a lot of them are self-starters and self-learners. They absorb, we have a somewhat flat hierarchy, so we let people talk and cross organizational boundaries and talk to other leaders in the business and be open to learn. Hey, and as staff go up through the ranks, and lots of people in our shop do this, some people want to go get their MBAs. We support that. Some people, so no, maybe it is $1,800 per person, but it's not $1,800 spent on every person. Some people go for their MBAs. We send people to, Harvard and Stanford to do executive courses. We send people to go get their tickets and so on and so forth. Just we're looking for that learning mindset. We are looking for people who can learn fast. That's great, but equally also unlearn fast. Everything in our industry, product design, ideas, systems, all of that changes every few years so fast. So can we find people who can cross organizational boundaries? It's not a formal, this is your mentor. These 8 people combined know more than you do about this particular topic. Please make sure that you go buy them coffees. Please don't worry about the expenses those coffees are creating. We're going to cover those coffees and expenses. Go talk. And then how quickly can you unlearn? Because it makes no difference what we did with X. If we given X facts 3 years ago, that's irrelevant. What do we need to do today? And underpinning at the end of the day is somewhat clarity of purpose. We exist because we meet the needs of the customer. We have to keep repeating that. Now, what that means is individuals start interpreting that in their own way, in their own jobs. Hey, is this report something that meets the needs of the customer? If not, I'm going to have conversations with different people about getting rid of X piece of what we actually do for a living. So I know it's not a straight answer, but I've personally not found formal mentorship programs where, you team up three people with this one person to be super effective, because today it is almost impossible to find that one charismatic leader that everybody wants to learn from. You're going to go talk to 10, 15 people, maybe run chat GPT a few times yourself. And you have to go to school in the programs that you want to take on, exec courses, Coursera. There's no shortage of information.
Thank you for that. No, that's a unique way of looking at things, and I think one that'll be embraced. Now, Stefan, you and your organization place thousands of students in I think thousands of employers around the province. So what do you all look for in a company's onboarding and mentorship programs for the students that you place?
Yeah, so it's probably slightly different than what Adil talked about when it's longer term employees, of course. For us, one of the key triggers is the organization needs to want to do this. We're not in a position where we try to convince someone to do this, because this is not going to work. So generally, if an organization, a representative, an individual wants to do this is step one. The second part is for them to understand that mentorship piece in this case very often is not about the technical mentoring and getting them exactly to the point where another employee needs to be after weeks X, whatever that may be. This is really about enthusiasm, passion, interest. So a lot of folks see themselves not as mentors, and that's okay, because by their pure engagement with these young folks, talking to them about the industry, talking about the opportunities, talking about obviously the technical job that they're doing, because they are doing work, they're being paid, they're not just sitting around, it's not a job shadow. By virtue of that, this is probably the best mentoring that they can do. So sometimes there's this big kind of, oh my God, I need to mentor someone. No, you need to really help a young worker in this case to understand the opportunities for their career. We are an educational nonprofit organization. We're not a placement agency. This is not just about providing a job and off you go and work a little bit. This is about really helping them to make that transition into their post-high school state. So, and I come back to what I mentioned earlier. If you live what you do, you kind of do what you do anyways, and you integrate your safety, performance, and all of that stuff in the work, and you have a youth running alongside and seeing all of this, this is the best mentorship you can do. They will learn by experience, and they will learn by mimicking what you do.
We also got asked a question about mentorship, the ACSA, and it really echoes what both of you have said here. And so the question specifically is orientation and field level hazard assessments are needed, but they mostly go over a new worker's head. We've heard a lot about mentoring. What can the ACSA do to assist employers in putting together mentorship programs? And I think for me, I'm going to take a tact from both of your answers. Having a formal mentorship program, at least in the construction industry, is a lot around how apprentices interact with the journey people that they work with. But it can't necessarily be so rigid that you don't have the flexibility to account for somebody's unique experiences, for their abilities, for the work that's going on site. What I would say, and it's akin to what you've said, Stefan, too, is it's so important, it's so critical to have an organization where there is an ethos of mentorship, where when you bring new people on site, the existing employees know how important it is for both formal training and the informal connections that experienced employees play in integrating a new person, a young person, just even a new employee into the way and the culture of that company and the way that work is done. We have a call to action that 55% of incidents and accidents in the construction industry happen in workers in their first year in a company. That's not first year workers. That's first year in a company, regardless of their experience. And I can't help but think that a more active, you have to want to do it. Like you said, Stefan, you have to want to do it. But having that commitment to ensuring that new workers are onboarded correctly, have the information that they need, um, you know, make sure that we have the tell, show, do, review approach to ensuring new workers and workers on the team have the opportunity to learn from the things that they're doing and mistakes will be well received. But I love the answer that you have here, and I'm happy to make sure that the industry knows that's how you both feel. So, Stefan, I want to bring this back to you. We have a question about financial access in the trades. So, edge of your seat stuff, I know this, but a common challenge for apprentices is the cost of returning to school to complete their training. Are there opportunities for greater financial support to help them move forward?
Absolutely, yes. So the short answer is yes, there are. They're both actually at a provincial and a federal level, and there are actually supports for both employers and for apprentices. So apprentices, for example, can access what's called Alberta Student Aid. They have the same access as any other student going to a post-secondary. So while they're taking their technical training, so they won't be able to access this while they're actually on the job site and doing their apprenticeship hours because they're getting paid for this. But while they do their technical training, they can access Alberta Student Aid. There's also the Canada Apprenticeship Loan. This is an interest-free loan that the government provides up to $4,000 per period, which is quite significant in terms of money. Then there's what's called the Apprenticeship Incentive Grant, as well as the Apprenticeship Completion Grant. So once you completed your apprenticeship, you can actually access $2,000. These are federal grants as well. There are actually also tax credits and deductions for tools, for other ways that youth can access, or any apprentice for that matter can access. And for employers, as I mentioned as well, there's some federal, and particularly job grants that are being provided. And the other option is always for an employer to commit to this youth for the entire duration of their apprenticeship if they choose to do so, and keep them as a more or less as an apprentice employee and support them through this. And maybe there's an agreement of paying them back after they complete their technical training and complete it and move into the next period. But there is definitely government support available.
Sure. And that last option would be for those folks that are young people that are not necessarily in school, but are looking for a career in the trades or whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say a number of my friends that worked in the trades were supported by employers. They were in school for a bit, worked, and their employers really helped them out when it came to those fees. So there is an ethos of that in the industry. You're correct. So, Adil, I want to turn it to you. I'd like to take a moment to talk about emerging technologies and how they are potentially reshaping the construction industry. So, with AI and automation becoming more prevalent in construction, how ready do you think the industry is to manage this shift, Adil? What advice would you give to safety professionals navigating robotic safety or any of these emerging automation trends?
Um, so at Rohit, treat we- we've always treated our business from the longest time where we say technology is a catalyst for improvement. Over the years, we've sort of come to change that mindset a little bit. We're a tech company masquerading as a real estate company. That's what we are. Um, we want to preserve that startup ethos, which is not easy with as you scale. It's a pain in the ass to have a startup with 300 people. It's not there aren't 300 people in a startup that all enjoy being at a startup. So there's this inherent conflict. But the internet meme on AI is that AI won't replace you. People who know how to use AI will replace you. And it's sort of generally true for technology. Change is coming. In the construction business, robotic construction, 3D printing, these kinds of technologies have come out of their infancy. I'm not saying they fully work yet. Like, I mean, if you have a robot and that gets a piece of lumber that's curved, it today's technology hasn't figured out exactly what to do with curved lumber yet, where a human can easily cut out the bad parts and sort of reuse the lumber. But the pace of change is very, very high. It will not, it is only a matter of time before cameras can catch safety infractions and write up incident sheets a lot better than any human being will be able to catch them 24/7. Can it do it today? Probably not, but the rate of change is high. So all I would say is that for most businesses, especially in the home building space, and it's a selfish plug for Build-Based, an Alberta grown software that we wrote, embrace AI, add automation, because there's no going back once you open this genie. And the next replacement, at least for our business, how we get replaced is not going to be by somebody that designs a better rectangular box to build, an extra 1,200 square foot house, a 1,500 square foot house and another 1,500 square foot house. You've reached the diminishing returns point of how much we can do with the exterior and the interior. What will now change is, what if we can build it in 3 weeks? What if we can do it with only 2 people per house? Now, these are transformational items that exist in that they're on their way.
And Stefan, you focus on young workers and young people. Do you have any observations about how they're engaging with new technology, the safety implications or challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, I would say that young workers expect it now rather than being surprised by it. And young workers go into a business or a company that's partially how they evaluate their ongoing commitment to an organization. Are they technology forward thinking or not? And Adil talked about it. I mean, if you stay at the forefront, you're on the winning path here. I think a lot of our longer term trades folks, journey people as well, will actually start learning from youth in that space. There will be a generational switch in a way that they will take on some of that stuff and appreciate the input from youth. And I think it's important in this case also to talk about that youth need to understand the advancements that have been and are being made in that trade space. So it's not your old, the plumber, that the plumber was 50 years ago. There's a high technology input into this already, and that work has changed to a great degree. So for youth to understand there's this advancements, they can use that and utilize this in that career and then feed it back into the employer and longer term employees in that space is quite critical.
So, this bell has been rung, and I think you've both said this. To pretend that it's not happening or that AI is not coming or that automation is not going to be part of our industry I think that's head in the sand stuff. So I agree. But I also agree with what you say, Adil. It's not necessarily going to replace workers. It'll just 10x what a worker can do eventually. And so I'm excited and cautiously optimistic, but of course my brain also goes back to Skynet every so often and the Terminator
Mark,
series. Go ahead. Yeah.
Mark, one funny example would be, for the folks who are on this webinar, this is what I recommend. Download this video, put it into ChatGPT, and ask it what better panelists would have said. And as panelists, I'm actually afraid for my job going forward, saying, crap, it does so much of a better job than I do. I think it's not a one or two thing replacement, or it's not, oh, it can touch these things and not these other things. Good God, it is pretty good at what it does.
That's fantastic. I'm gonna do that and then be actively humbled at the end of this session here. So, we have one more question from the conference. So Stefan, I'm gonna turn this to you. Like, your organization places young people in all industries. You're not just focused on the trades, even though that's our focus as the Construction Safety Association. But how does your program introduce and familiarize these young people and new workers to safely use common tools in their work, common tools in the trades, things like that?
Yeah, so we really look at employers or the workplace as an extension to the school. So we combine these two. That's one thing. So there's the education piece in school, and then there's the workplace. And as we all know, a lot of schools have, for example, shop classes through the technology studies section where youth can explore some of the tools, which is great as a basis. So if we now send youth out through our program in particular, put them into industry and have folks that know the tools well enough and know how to use it, this for us is the best way of introducing youth to the tools. So the shop classes being the basic, the foundational piece, create that, interest. And yes, I can swing a hammer, and yes, I can connect some electrical wires, or I can see what happens in the health space. So otherwise, putting them with an employer now over the summer or during the terms and having them actually use them under supervision, for us, this is the winning ingredient of youth feeling comfortable and feeling more assured that this is a career pathway they want to go into.
Right. Well, thank you both. I think that we are pretty close to the end of our time here. So we've covered a lot of great content today. But before we wrap up, I'd just like to invite our panelists here, Stefan and Adil, to share any final thoughts. So Adil, do you have any closing comments you'd like to share with us today?
I think we've covered a lot of fairly interesting conversations in here. And I guess in summary, prepare for disruption, change is coming. Watch for the early adopters of change, and watch, you don't want to be the first person, but at least be the third, and see where life is taking all of us. It's exciting times ahead.
Thank you. And how about you, Stefan?
Well, I agree with the exciting times ahead, for sure. First and foremost, thank you for being part of this, as I said, but also, I really want folks to start more thinking about our youth and the potential that youth can bring. There's a high unemployment rate in youth in Alberta, in Canada for that matter, and I think this is a bit of an untapped resource. We haven't even talked about young women, and we haven't talked about Indigenous, other two huge areas of opportunity for employers. But really start considering youth as an active participant in developing youth and educating youth in the trades or other vocations.
Thank you both. Thank you, Adil and Stefan, and thank you to everyone who joined us today for this conversation. We hope this session offered meaningful insights on how we can support and strengthen Alberta's construction workforce, including through engagement and mentorship. So a recording of this webinar will be available on ACSA's YouTube channel on Monday. If you'd like to watch the recording from the webinar or take Adil's advice and put it in ChatGPT and see how it could have been better with better panelists, you can do that as well. But you'll be able to access it on our YouTube channel. And please keep your Slido window open and fill out our short post-webinar survey. This always helps us improve. And that is the theme for the ACSA, and the industry you've heard is continuous improvement. So this was the final session of our two-part Safety Foundations webinar series. So thank you again to my guests today. Thank you to everyone who joined us. I really appreciate the expertise that was on display here. Thank you, everyone, and have a safe and good day. Take care.